Hey guys, welcome back to Ace Recaps, your go-to source for the most heart-pounding tales in cinema. Today, buckle up for a roller coaster of suspense as we're diving headfirst into the chilling waters of a 2022 Hindi horror thriller film titled Blur that will leave you questioning reality itself. Gauri, a blind woman, is seen talking to an invisible force. The force has been tormenting her for a few weeks by playing songs and following her around the house. Having had enough of it, Gauri goes up to the attic and ties a noose around her neck, and just as she's about to end it all, she feels the presence around her and changes her mind. Before she removes the noose, someone kicks the stool away. Standing in the corner, a person clicks pictures of her hanging to death. Just then, Gauri's twin sister Gayatri, who lives miles away from her, suddenly wakes up from a nightmare. She senses something wrong in the twin force and decides to visit her sister along with her husband Neil. As they get to her home, nobody opens the door, and so Gayatri breaks in and finds her sister hanging in the attic. Both sisters suffer from a rare disease that made their vision progressively worse, eventually making them blind, but Gauri's vision had gotten bad before Gayatri's. The police are soon called, who declare it a case of suicide. He suspects Gauri got depressed due to her blindness, which caused her to commit the unthinkable. Sherlock's got competition. He would be proud of this lightning-fast deduction. Declaring suicide with such precision, even poetry is jealous of their decision. However, Gayatri insists the police look into the case as she believes it's a case of murder and not suicide, as Gauri was next in line on the donor list to get her new eyes. The police inform her about a woman named Babita, who Gauri was very close to. Gayatri soon visits the old woman, where she gets to know about Powali Wellness Center, a place to help handicapped people find their place in life. She tells her that Gauri had made new friends there. That night, as Gayatri is all by herself in the house, her vision starts to blur and she senses somebody else around her. The music starts playing on its own and she feels someone try to touch her. Alone that night, her vision turned hazy. She sensed a presence and things got crazy. She freaks out, but luckily Neil arrives just in time. The next morning, Gayatri visits the wellness center and finds a group of blind women gossiping about Gauri. I guess you could say she was on a blind mission. Literally, Gauri had a boyfriend who she went with to Hotel Lakeview a few weeks before her death. The women notice Gayatri's presence and confront her. When she introduces herself, they ask her who the man she came with is. Gayatri is surprised as she'd come there alone, but the women sense someone standing behind her. On turning around, Gayatri spots someone in the shadows. She chases after the person and corners him in a small dark room. The man's right in front of her, but she isn't able to see his face due to the darkness. He distracts her by flashing his camera and escapes from there. The light causes her eyesight to go weak and she faints outside the hospital. Listening to this, Neil insists that Gayatri give up her hunt and go back home, as any more stress could cause her to lose her vision, but she convinces him to go to Hotel Lakeview for a holiday. But in reality, she wants to find out about the man the blind women had been talking about. Early next morning, they cremate Gauri's body and head off to the hotel. As they get there, Gayatri isn't able to find any information about her sister's boyfriend, as there were no records of him. At dinner, the waiter tells her that Gauri already had her eye operation, as she had bandages covering her eyes when she visited the hotel. This confuses Gayatri as to why her sister committed suicide if she already had the operation. Listening to this, Neil reveals that Gauri's doctor told him that the surgery was unsuccessful and this is the reason Gauri committed suicide. He did not disclose this information to her as he did not want to stress her out even more than she already is. As she hears this, she has a mental breakdown and storms outside the hotel. Her vision starts to blur and she almost meets with an accident, revealing to her husband that her eyes have already started to deteriorate and that she'd need new eyes soon before she goes completely blind. The next morning, as Gayatri leaves the hotel, she is approached by the janitor, who claims to have found something in Gauri's hotel room. He guides her to his room and gives her a key that belonged to Gauri. He also warns to be careful of the man in the dark. Just then she senses someone standing behind her, but the person runs away before she can catch him. She convinces Neil to help her check out the surveillance footage to identify the person Gauri was with. Neil goes in to get the footage but never returns. An hour later, Gayatri goes in search of her husband but finds him missing and all the surveillance footage is gone too. She reports to the police about Neil's disappearance and informs them about the janitor who's seen the mysterious man. Just then, we see the janitor bathing in a tub. Somebody drops a light bulb over him, electrocuting him to death. As Gayatri and the police come looking for the janitor, they find him dead in the bathtub. Gayatri is now convinced that the invisible man killed the janitor and has kidnapped her husband. Worried about Neil, she gets a seizure that worsens her eyesight. She visits her doctor, who tells her that she is less than a month before she goes completely blind, and the doctor puts her up on the donor list. If only Amazon delivered eyes with Prime shipping, she'd be all set. Gayatri is convinced that the surgery won't be successful just as it did with her sister, but the doctor assures her Gayatri's surgery was in fact successful. This confuses her as to why her husband would lie about it, and on the way back home, she isn't able to see, which causes her to crash the car. The police inform her that they received a call from Neil and they head back home. The police look around the house while Gayatri stays back. She spots a light coming from under the door of the attic and follows the trail of candles. Due to her eyesight in the darkness of the room, she isn't able to see anything. As she feels around the room, she suddenly touches a man, causing her to freak out. She starts yelling for help and the police rush to her aid. They find Neil's body hanging from the ceiling. Even though they flash the torch on Gayatri's face, she claims that the room is very dark, meaning she has completely lost her eyesight. The following day after Gayatri's eye transplant, the officer tells her about Neil's suicide note. He and Gauri had an affair for 6 months. Unable to bear the guilt, he killed himself. Listening to this news, Gayatri has a meltdown and is sedated by the staff. The next day, the doctor tells her that she has to live with the bandages around her eyes for a week. Only after that will she know if the surgery was successful. Gayatri convinces the doctor to let her stay in Gauri's house along with a caretaker to help her with her day-to-day tasks. As she is dropped off, she requests the staff to find out what the key unlocks. This is the same key that was given to her by the janitor. On checking every door, cupboard and drawer in the house, they tell her that it does not unlock anything, and so she hangs it by the door. She has another mental breakdown but is interrupted by the caretaker assigned to her by the hospital. Dhruv prepares her dinner, gives her her medication, hands over a phone to call him anytime she wants, and leaves. That night, Gayatri has a nightmare about Neil and Gauri trying to take her bandage off. She wakes up in a sweaty haze and hears someone outside her room. She calls up Dhruv and he instructs her to get out of the house. She manages to escape, but just then we see someone steal the keys given to her by the janitor. As she walks out in the rain, she runs into Dhruv, who helps her back into the house. He looks around but doesn't find any evidence of invasion. He proceeds to lovingly change Gayatri's bandages and promises to help her to the best of his abilities in these difficult times. Over the next few days, the two of them form a strong bond with one another. He takes great care of her by changing her bandages, cooking for her, and listening to music with her. But through all of this, we never get to see Dhruv's face. On the 5th day, she asks him to stay back for a few drinks, and after having a deep conversation about Neil, she kisses him. Because nothing builds trust like a blind date, right? That night as she sleeps, someone is seen entering her room and clicking her pictures. He tries to inject her with a drug, but this wakes her up and she finally touches the man. Terrified, she runs out of the house, where she finds her neighbor Abhi lurking around. He takes her back to his place where he lives with his daughter Ira. He starts to harass her, and as he goes in to fetch her a glass of water, Gayatri is surprised to find her key in his house, which she takes with her. She manages to escape from there and hides back in the house, where she calls Dhruv for help. Shortly after, he finds her in a corner. She is too scared to stay there for the night, and so Dhruv takes her back to his place. She tells him that she found her key in Abhi's home and suspects that he's the man who killed her sister. As Dhruv leaves for some time, Ira approaches Gayatri. She has followed them there and snuck into the house through the window. Ira tells Gayatri that she was the one who stole the keys and that she knows who killed Gauri and Neil. It is the mysterious man, Dhruv himself. Ira reveals that she used to be very close with Gauri and that she knows about the mysterious man. She insists that the key opens one of the doors in Ivan's house, but Gayatri doesn't believe her. The meds Dhruv has been giving Gayatri are the reasons for her nightmares. These same meds caused Gauri to go insane and hang herself. Ira runs away as she hears Dhruv approaching. He gives Gayatri some more of the pills, which she spits out in the bathroom. She sneaks around the house and uses the key to open one of the doors. As she enters the room, she removes her bandages and is shocked to find many pictures of Gauri and herself on the wall. She leaves the room to look for Ira, but sees her body stabbed to the wall. Terrified, she falls to the floor. Just then, Dhruv comes into the room, where we see his face for the first time. His face is splattered with Ira's blood. Gayatri acts as though the surgery was unsuccessful and pretends that she is still blind. He expresses his love for her and promises to be by her side by guiding her to the kitchen. There she sees him drugging her cup of tea. Gayatri swaps her cup with Dhruv's, and although he doesn't see it, he gets suspicious of her when he spots the ripple in the tea. He leads her to a freezer and asks her to open it. Inside of it is a body of the real Dhruv. Who knew dating could be so chilling? Gayatri gasps, giving away the fact that she can actually see. Not wanting to lose her and knowing that the only way she can depend on him is if she's blind, he injects her eye with some liquid and locks her in the freezer along with the dead body. An extreme version of Netflix and chill, if you ask me. The next day, Dhruv goes back to work and acts as though everything is fine. Gayatri pushes on the freezer door the whole day and finally manages to break free just as Dhruv returns home. She escapes from one of the windows and finds her way into Babita's house. There she pleads with her to call the police, but just then Dhruv walks in. As he tries to convince her that he's not a killer, Babita hits Gayatri on the head with a vase. It is finally revealed that Babita is in fact Dhruv's mom. She used to be a famous actress but moved to the outskirts of the country when she had a son without a father. She tormented him his entire childhood, which is the reason he is the way he is. Having had enough of her cruel ways, Dhruv chokes his mom and kills her. Gayatri wakes up in the attic of Gauri's house. Dhruv sits in front of her and has packed all her belongings as he plans to take her away to live with him. She chooses to hang herself instead of living a life with him but isn't able to take the final step. As he kisses her, she uses this opportunity to stab him and quickly gets out of the attic and locks him there. She calls the police and tries to get out of the house, but all the doors have been bolted shut. Just as Dhruv breaks out, Gayatri cuts off all the lights in the house. Now that it's pitch dark, Dhruv uses his camera's flash to look for Gayatri and spots her. Just as he's about to kill her, the police come in but they cannot see anything in the dark either. Gayatri uses one of the torches and shines it on Dhruv in the corner. Dhruv has a mental breakdown as he's finally been exposed, and as everyone looks at him, he slits his own throat, killing himself. A few days later, Gayatri is at the hospital where she finds out that the damage to her eyes is irreversible. Using her last few hours of vision, Gayatri says goodbye to Neil's corpse. It is revealed that he was the one who donated his eyes to her. The movie ends as Gayatri kisses her husband and the camera zooms into her eyes. That's all folks, thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Have a great day.